Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here, and welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. And it's good to be back. Today, we're going to be talking about, of course, as countless people have requested, the new information regarding an 8.3 and Shadowlands-based leak. And if you guys haven't seen this going around, well, you're about to see it now. Bellular's done a video on it. Several other people have done a video on it. I have actually spoken about this before, about 2 or 3 weeks ago on my stream, and I have been kind of debating whether or not I wanted to do a video on it over the last couple weeks. First off, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Some parts of it seem believable, some parts of it not so much. But let's jump into it. So the leak was originally posted on 4chan, and it is not on 4chan any longer. I tried to find the original post, and it's not there. But there's a summary of it here on MMO Champion. So here's the thing. As I pointed out when watching it on stream, there's a couple pretty believable things, couple glaring issues though as well. First thing you'll see here is just a callback to the previous leak of the supposed Shadowlands expansion, where we have a picture of the Shadowlands. I just want to go ahead and throw out there, for over a year and a half now, I've been saying that we were going to venture to the Shadowlands. The way by which that was going to happen is we were all going to die. And I've been saying, actually, that Sylvanas would champion said effort as part of her pact with Helya. This is something I've been saying for a very, very long time. So if this turns out to be true, please, don't forget that I said that. Moving forward, we did already talk about this whole map. If you want to see the video about that, you can go check that out. There'll be a link to that in the description down below. I think this is actually real, by the way. I think this map is real. And I think that what it's portraying is real. And I do think that our inevitable journey to the Shadowlands is real. So with that being said, let's go forward. So this is the new information here. Here's some juicy info on 8.3 and the next expansion. I want to give a disclaimer, as with all leaks, it is very likely that everything you're about to see is completely fake and completely bullshit. It could be completely falsified and written up by someone who just wants to you know, push a couple buttons or to just kind of hype things up a little bit. I'm not sure. I certainly did not come up with this, as I've seen several comments on people like Bellular's video of these stupid motherfuckers saying that I came up with this leak to give more credence to my theories. That is the most tinfoil. You think I have a tinfoil hat? You guys are fucking. If you think that, that's some tinfoil hat shit right there. You gotta chill out. There's no. So let's go forward. I can't say how much of this is 100% accurate. This is all stuff I've been able to patch together from the information I got. This is a direct quote from 4chan, so this is not re-summarized. This is them literally copying it word for word. About the leaked map, it appears to be a WIP map, work in progress map, one of many that were presented during a layout pitch meeting about 1 to 2 years ago. So when people say Blizzard doesn't plan expansions ahead of time, yes they do. They have to. You don't just wing together expansions out of nothing, okay? I think it's about time we just got fucking real about that. The logo is probably a placeholder or suggestion made by the presenter for that particular pitch. It's not unusual for the developers to spice things up. The real logo is always finalized shortly before the actual announcement. I would tend to agree with that. I don't think we've ever seen a leaked logo that ended up being the actual logo. Many of the hub names are also placeholders, but the main zone names were predetermined. The map is actually very representative of the final design of the Shadowlands, so who's ever writing this is essentially saying, I know what the finalized version of the Shadowlands looks like, and this does look very similar to it. So far, every zone except Niketos is represented in the development version of 9.0. The name Niketos, by the way, I'm going to touch back on, hopefully I'm saying that right, is very Greek, and it would seem to me that in the Hades fashion, that the Shadowlands, if it turns out to be the true expansion, is actually very Greek themed, kind of like the Greek underworld kind of thing. And the fact that there are rivers of souls that allegedly run through the whole thing to the center of it, very similar to like the river Styx from Greek mythology, that would make a lot of sense. A lot of the names are also very Greek inspired. But let's move on. Because this photo of the Shadowlands map was taken so long ago, probably nobody can recall who exactly attended the meeting, and certainly nobody remembers who was sitting there. So for the people that expressed concern of my previous video on that particular leak, saying that I gave out too much information, especially when I went on Asmongold's stream and talked about it, like, don't worry about it. If people are going to risk their jobs by putting leaks out like this, you got to understand that there's going to be content creators like me that are going to cover it. And as I had mentioned on Asmongold's stream, I have had 3 different employees reach out to me. I'm just going to say it flat out. I've had 3 different employees reach out to me that have had verifiable proof that they are or were current employees during the development of this particular information regarding this map right here. I'm not going to give any information on those people, but I have had 3 people prove to me that not only have they helped to develop World of Warcraft actively in the past, 2 of which were actually still current employees. So I'm going to go ahead and take their word for it over anything that anyone in the comment section is going to say in order to discredit anything that's been provided in that fashion. Moving on, Shadowlands isn't all dark and gloomy. The concept art for Xeros and Darkfront is very colorful. The Riftlands feels more like a psychedelic outland, and I think that, again, this would make sense. If the Riftlands has a bunch of connections to other planes of reality, or planes of existence, rather, like the Emerald Dream, the Void, etc., then I think that it makes a lot of sense that it would be kind of a psychedelic, trippy fucking place where you have all these different realms of existence coming together, and I think that that makes a lot of sense, considering that the Rift of Aln, you know, the Alnir Riftlands is what this place is called. The Rift of Aln apparently connects to the Twisting Nether and God knows where else. I've been saying for a very long time that it connects to the Shadowlands as well, and that the Shadowlands is where N'Zoth actually is. I've been saying that for almost 2 fucking years now. So again, for people that try to say that like my shit has like no substance to it, or that I've just been like randomly stringing things together and it comes out, you know, like, fuck off. I put way too much effort and way too much time into this, and I'm there's no way. So again, I think that this really helps to confirm a lot of the things that I've been saying. The Shadowlands isn't all dark and gloomy. That doesn't even surprise me, considering that if you do the reading on it, when Odin peered into the Shadowlands, he saw not only death, but he saw life. Wow, shocker. But that's what happens when you do reading. The Blood Trolls in Marbora are not our enemies. They're being tortured for their failure to worship Akaran life, etc. Okay. So I already covered all this stuff. So let's just move down to patch 8.3. The last boss of BFA was indeed shown in the Ashara cinematic. This is a different leak, just so you know. This is a separate leak. But it's more metaphorical than people realize. The last boss is us, Alliance and Horde, as indicated by the last shot of Jaina and Lorthamar. 2 people that historically have been kind of enemies, by the way, after Jaina decided to go crazy and start murdering the Blood Elves that were in Dalaran. So Lorthamar is not exactly the biggest fan of Jaina, but recently, with the strife that Sylvanas has kind of put everybody through, it's kind of drawn people back together. And I've been saying for a while as well that Sylvanas has been intentionally trying to draw the Horde and the Alliance back together by committing terrible deeds in order to turn people against not the Horde, but against her. So again, feeding into my theories. Ashara and N'Zoth are both bosses in the next expansion. That wouldn't be shocking to me. Everyone at the beginning of BFA, not everybody, but a lot of people were, you know, under the whole faction war trip kind of thing. Oh, it's a faction war, it's a faction war, it's all about PvP expansion. And I think that given how the expansion has progressed, with the exception of about 2 raids, it mostly has been a faction war, but certainly not what I would consider a PvP expansion. We won't be facing them again, at least physically, in BFA. So I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Perhaps we will see N'Zoth and Ashara again in BFA, but not in a physical sense. We won't be facing off against them or fighting them. Sylvanas will prepare a strike against Thunderbluff, tricking both the Alliance and Horde into defending it. During this distraction, she will invade and conquer Stormwind. The latter will be explained through a comic released in October. So first off, right here, if a comic comes out in October covering that, then this fucking leak is probably real. I mean, you can't go out there and say some shit like there's going to be a comic that covers this specific thing, and if it comes out, you can't go back to this leak and say, okay, this is bullshit, because at that point, like, the leak is almost confirming itself. They at least had that much information that they're aware of that. And they have illustrated a lot of pretty important interactions, like the meeting of the 3 sisters, Sylvanas, Illyria, and Verisa, in comics. It wouldn't shock me that if they did the same thing with the conquering of Stormwind, if it happened as a side activity to what is happening in Thunderbluff. The thing about that is that after the most recent cinematic where we save Bane, you do have Thrall in her interaction with Jaina, saying something along the lines of, Sylvanas will come for Thunderbluff now. She is going to come and try to take this place. But here's the thing, is that if you do the reading, and Before the Storm, the book that came out basically as a prologue to Battle for Azeroth, it does say in there that Sylvanas' end game was Stormwind. She wanted to take Stormwind. In fact, I'm just going to read that part to you real quick. So this is what it says about Sylvanas Windrunner wanting to take Stormwind. Sylvanas shook her head. No, this needs to be a small number so I can control the situation. Council members only. As my queen wishes. If I may speak freely, I believe you have made a wise decision. From all that I have seen, I believe this will quell any rumblings of discontent. Sylvanas replies, one way or another it will. She smiled coldly. It could also pave the way for claiming Stormwind. I had thought that an attack would be the only means to take it, but if the young king trusts us, we could one day soon pass through those magnificent gates to a friendly welcome. Her thoughts once again went to the astonishing substance that was Azerite, what it could do, what it could create, what it could destroy. And I think there's actually more about this in A Good War, one of the short stories that talks about Sylvanas and Thanos' plan to eventually take Stormwind. It's basically supporting the idea that Sylvanas does inevitably want to take Stormwind. This has been written in a couple different places, actually. So, it has always been the plan to finish the expansion with a raid version of Stormwind. Therefore, patch 8.3 includes a 10-boss raid with Elwyn and the city itself, along with a complimentary, all-new 40-player battleground. So the 40-player battleground, that'll be interesting. I wonder what that would be. So a raid version of Stormwind. What is this starting to sound like? Here, let me help you. It's starting to sound like the Siege of Orgrimmar. And I understand where people are coming from. We're actually going to tie this to the Siege of Orgrimmar a little bit. So stay tuned for that. That'll be pretty interesting. But again, I would like to just reinforce the fact that even though Blizzard has directly said that they are not going to do with Sylvanas what they did with Garrosh, people will continue to say so. Let's move on. In the raid, Horde and Alliance players fight alongside important lore characters and leaders from both factions, which makes sense. Sylvanas has already taken Stormwind at this point. The raid is about defeating Sylvanas and reclaiming Stormwind. The first boss is a sort of caravan escort scenario. An Azerite-powered battering ram made by goblins and gnomes will start at Goldshire and travel slowly towards the gates of Stormwind. Waves of ads will attack the ram in an attempt to destroy it. So it's like a reverse Hellfire assault. The second boss is Old God aligned and has enslaved city guards and other famous Stormwind NPCs such as Topper McNabb. Another notable boss is Anduin. Halfway through the raid, he will succumb to the whispers of N'Zoth. We must fight him until he returns to his former self. Rathian makes a special appearance during this fight. N'Zoth is trying very hard to keep us from reaching Sylvanas. A couple things here. This is a couple huge things here. So Anduin succumbing to the whispers of N'Zoth. As he is a human, I find that to be a possibility. His connection with the light makes me think it's less possible. We have to fight him until he returns to his former self, so we're not going to kill him, of course. Rathian makes a special appearance during this fight. That actually makes sense because Rathian has been pretty heavily involved recently with Abyssian when trying to get him to kind of snap out of the influence of N'Zoth. I mean, Rathian is responsible for us figuring out this potion to take to Abyssian in order to release him from the grasp of N'Zoth. So it would kind of make sense, especially given Rathian's previous relationship and interactions with Anduin, that something like this could actually happen. Not only that, though, it says here, N'Zoth is trying very hard to keep us from reaching Sylvanas. Is that to suggest, then, that N'Zoth is working with Sylvanas? Because that's kind of what I've been saying for a while now. And as I will continue to reiterate, I don't think that N'Zoth is just some other old god. I think there's a little bit more at play here than people realize. But I have plenty of videos on that if you want to check those out. The 8th boss is Nathanos. This encounter takes place in Cathedral Square. Tyrande decapitates him at the end of the fight. I think that'd be cool. And I want him to die. I don't know if they can show that, though. Because I think that'd push the game to an M rating, wouldn't it? Unless they did it in a sense where perhaps you can see like the shadow or silhouette of Tyrande decapitating him, which I think would be pretty fitting because the whole shadow thing. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see Thanos die. And if we're all going to die, I mean, it's got to happen at some point. They did also say, though, that Tyrande already got revenge for what happened at Darkshore. Apparently that was done by just getting one of Sylvanas' Valkyr, which doesn't really make a lot of fucking sense. But this kind of would go against, to an extent, what the devs had already said. The penultimate boss is Sylvanas. She awaits us in Stormwind Harbor. Massive spoilers now, be warned. Sylvanas is the first of 2 encounters that comprise the grand finale of BFA. Alliance and Horde will fight side by side against Sylvanas, until Bolvar eventually appears and starts killing Horde leaders. First to go is Lorthamar. Bolvar will then side with Talia in the Alliance. Sylvanas will shoot Gen in response, prompting the intermission. So, this is where I got kind of lost when I was reading this leak. So, Bolvar just comes out of nowhere. Okay. So, there's a couple things here. There was a previous leak that said that Bolvar flat out lied about who sent Vol'jin back. And I did point out that during the questline where you're going around to the different spots to recall and recount the events of the Broken Shore with Vol'jin's spirit, you can see this pair of burning eyes that are kind of floating there in several different spots. You can spot them at multiple places on the Broken Shore, and even when you enter Orgrimmar, you can see them there. And they do look quite like the burning eyes of Bolvar. The only thing about that is that nothing has been really, like, substantially hinted at that's kind of saying that they have any kind of alliance. If that were the case, and Bolvar, for instance, was one of the 2 parties that was involved in sending Vol'jin back, and he just flat out lied about it, then it could make sense that Bolvar would come to carry out the final phase of Sylvanas' plan at this behest of Sylvanas. Because one of the things that sounds a little confusing is Bolvar starts killing Horde leaders. But the thing about that is that if Sylvanas does want everybody to die, it's not against Sylvanas' plan to kill Horde leaders. And if it's true that the Whispers really wanted Sylvanas to be the war chief, then it would kind of make sense in a way that Bolvar would be an ally to that effort if he was the one that said the Whispers. But we don't have any proof of that. Just very, very small things that kind of potentially hint towards it. Bolvar will then side with Talia in the Alliance. So that's... I don't know about siding with them. I don't know how that would work. Why that would happen. Because the key here is that everybody would need to die. That's the whole point. Everyone is dying. Sylvanas will shoot Gen in response, prompting the intermission. That's just so strange. But you know what? I hate to say this. As much as this doesn't make any fucking sense, as much as I would never predict something like this to happen, I also didn't think that Sylvanas would do this. You know? I thought that there was some kind of, like, weird interaction or framing that went on that made it look like Sylvanas had done that. And then it turns out that Sylvanas is the one that did it. The most obvious answer was the answer. And I hate to say this, but this is kind of so off the wall that it almost could be true. Do I think it's good or bad? Honestly, I'm not even going to give my opinion on it. You can have your own opinion. I am just going to tell you what it says and if it's likely or not. During the intermission, all of the Horde leaders will rejoin Sylvanas. Gen dies, and Anduin and Jaina declare war on the Horde. The final fight begins. So this is again, this is kind of like corny and weird. All of the Horde leaders will rejoin Sylvanas during the intermission. So something prompts the intermission. Sylvanas does something that rallies all the Horde leaders back to Sylvanas. I don't understand why. You know, without like the context, without the specifics either, I don't understand how this makes any fucking sense. Gen dies, and Anduin and Jaina declare war on the Horde. We've already been at war. Unless what they're saying here is like, basically they give like a rallying cry of like a war, you know, like a... You know, that's just like, the whole thing has already been a war. Then the final fight begins. The final boss is the Horde, or the Alliance, which I kind of like this idea. This encounter is cosmetically unique to each faction, as it should be, but strategically identical. Horde will win once Anduin is dead, and Alliance will win once Sylvanas is dead. This is where a lot of people disconnect. They don't believe that Anduin could die, and they don't believe that Sylvanas could die. Now, here's the thing. With Anduin's insane connection to the light, I do think that it's a little bit more unlikely that Anduin would ever actually be able to die. At least in this sense. Sylvanas could die as well. But let's finish this. The encounter has been designed to have your faction leaders die one by one as the opposing faction's health ticks down, which I get behind that. The players will all die as well, like the Arthas fight, or the Argus fight, by the way, with Anduin and Sylvanas being the last ones standing. And this honestly would make sense. I mean, they're the two covers that are on the cover, or two characters that are on the cover of Before the Storm. They are the two characters that are on pretty much all of the art that's been done for Battle for Azeroth. I mean, the official Battle for Azeroth art is literally Anduin and Sylvanas fighting each other. The main opening cinematic was focused heavily on Anduin and Sylvanas, of course. It wouldn't shock me if this turned out to be true, if those were the last two standing. Anduin is basically a living beacon of hope, and Sylvanas is one of the most powerful characters on Azeroth at the moment. She's very powerful as a Banshee, is what she is. This is what it says. A cinematic will play once the encounter is over. Anduin will end up killing Sylvanas or vice versa, depending on your faction, only to die of his or her wounds. Okay, that's pretty typical. It's relatively common trope in battles where you want both people to die. Ultimately, everyone will be dead, and the harbor will be silent. Characters will then wake up in the Shadowlands, and a ghostly fleet of Helya's ships awaits us in the death version of Stormwind Harbor. With Thanos by her side, Sylvanas declares that we're now strong enough to face the true battle for Azeroth. Oh, and I know it's corny. I know it's corny. But this is literally what I've been fucking saying. This is almost to a fucking T what I've been theorizing over the last year and a half, based on the hints that have been laid out in front of us. Sylvanas is intentionally doing something that is going to make both factions stronger. And I've been saying this for a long fucking time. Death is a doorway in WoW. Death is not the end. It is not the end of everything. It is a doorway that allows for the beginning of a new way of existence, or a restart to existence. Death takes you somewhere and shows you something. True death. And when we die and we go into the spirit world, where the spirit healers linger, and they send us back because it's not yet our time, we're not passing to the true Shadowlands. I've been saying this. Oh, it's so annoying. I've been saying this for so long. People call me fucking crazy, and then leaks like this come out and people start to believe shit. Come on. Give me some fucking credit for calling this shit as long ago as I did, if this ends up being true. And you may be wondering, how exactly does this Stormwind raid tie into the Siege of Orgrimmar? Well, remember when in the Garrosh fight, in the mythic, or at that point, heroic version of the fight, you go into the hidden final phase? Many of you may have never actually seen this, but you go into a kind of nightmare version of Stormwind Harbor. And in the harbor, all of the faction leaders, including Lorthamar Theron, Sylvanas Windrunner, Bane Bloodhoof, Vol'jin, Thrall, and Anduin, Jaina, Tyrande, and, what's this guy's name? The leader of the Shadow Pen? Whatever. They're all dead. They're all dead. So that's pretty fitting, considering that this is a vision that Garrosh was apparently shown, but obviously didn't come true. But based on what we're seeing from this leak, may actually inevitably become true. So, yeah. Here is the thing. Anduin dies, Alliance dies. Horde will win, Alliance will win, if you want to call it winning. But there is a greater threat out there. We've often ignored it to fight the Legion, who was also trying to eradicate the same threat. Allegedly. So, a short teaser cinematic starring Galliwix and Mechatork will be shown at BlizzCon in November. Galliwix, who fled from the fight in Stormwind, will eventually... And it is like Galliwix to run away, a little bitch. He'll find King Mechatork's escape pod and awaken him from suspended animation. Together, they figure out what happened and construct a device that will allow us to enter and leave the Shadowlands at will. And that wouldn't be shocking. We've done that with the Dream and other realms as well. Their cooperation lays the groundwork for the new Tinker class. The device is rumored to be the Dalaran Hearthstone of 9.0, given to you at the end of the introductory questline. It works like Monk's Transcendence ability. Kalia is the interim Forsaken faction leader during the raid. Great. That's not what we need. BFA's patch release schedule feels slower because the plan is to lead into 9.0 much quicker than ever before after the release of 8.3. You can have a physical form in the Shadowlands if you are brought there artificially, either by its denizens, such as spirit healers, or by means of dimensional technology. The Dragon Isles, the Shadowlands, and the Old Gods have a much deeper connection than one would think. This is explained by lots of quests and dungeons, but I don't know any specifics besides the shrines in Dragonblight, and on the Dragon Isles being connected to the Shadowlands somehow. This connection will also play a major role and be explored in the patches going forward. The Curse of Flesh also plays a role in this. I'm going to say this again. The Curse of Flesh doesn't come from the Old Gods. I think it comes from Argus. You can call me wrong, but if it turns out to be true, I'm going to be very proud about it. The dragons are in some way inherently tied to Sargeras and Argus, specifically the Black Dragons. And I think the Deathwing, once again, is a great illustration of how that is so. N'Zoth is directly in some way tangentially linked to Argus, the Unmaker, and is a figment of shadow and death. I will continue to say that as well. N'Zoth is not simply an old god. That is what I believe, anyway. The most convincing part about this whole leak is, of course, the screenshot. Let's take a look at it. So this is a screenshot that, as Bellular pointed out in his video, from what I've heard, because I haven't watched it, is quite in line with the cinematic art style that we've seen before. And in the cinematic, in this screenshot, the first things that I noticed, of course, is that the shattered mask, the Forsaken symbol of the Banshee Queen, is on the masts and on the sails of these ships. These are very Vrykul themed ships from what I can tell, and it would make sense that they are in some capacity tied to Helya. All of these green things, dead people. Another thing that I quickly noticed was that down here, you have Blight that's sitting on the harbor dock, which would not be there without the presence of the Forsaken and Sylvanas, of course. And then you have Sylvanas right here, Nathanos, and Bane Bloodhoof. Just three main characters. These are side characters. I don't believe that those are any specific or particular characters, but you have these three on the dock as Helya's ships are seemingly coming in and potentially ferrying us to the realm of the dead. So all in all, do I think the leak is real? Well, if I wanted a leak that supported this other leak, and a leak that supported the theories that I've been piecing together for, I don't know, over a year and a half, almost 2 years now, then yeah, I would like to say that this is real. Some parts of this, I think, are strangely specific, almost to an uncomfortable extent, where it's talking specifically about these encounters. It doesn't go through every boss in the raid, which I think is a good thing. I think if it were to detail every single boss, it'd be more likely to be bullshit. But I think it's inevitable that there is a raid where we fight Sylvanas. We already fought the other two Warbringers, Ashara, of course, and Jaina. Neither of which turned out to be dead. So, Jaina was alive. We fought her. She stayed alive. Ashara was alive. We killed her. She was brought back to life. Sylvanas is undead. We fight her. Maybe she ends up dead. Potentially. The whole Bolvar thing is really part of what throws me off. However, in this other leak that spoke about this, it did say Bolvar was instrumental in the efforts in the Shadowlands. And that he'd be very much present. And there are ways that this could work out where Bolvar comes and starts fucking shit up, even without him being the one that names Sylvanas War Chief, because ultimately I think that was probably Sargeras and Argus, or potentially N'Zoth and Sargeras or something in that regard. As I've pointed out in many videos before, Sargeras and Argus and Deathwing and N'Zoth are all very much so tied to one another, and there's plenty of evidence in order to support that idea. You should watch my videos on those if you don't believe that. So, yeah. I don't know. This is an interesting leak. I think some of it seems pretty legit. Some of it also seems maybe not so legit. And this is kind of how leaks work. So you either have to choose to believe them or not believe them. Do I think someone just made this art, made this up, and this is just fucking fan art? Fuck no. No, this looks real as fuck. This honestly looks like some shit you would see in a cinematic. I mean, it's the same art style. I mean, look at all this. There's even shadows for every single entity. Like, come on. I think this is real. People that are saying this is fake, I think you need to fucking fix your eyes, because I think this is definitely real. And the map and the picture of the cinematic are the most damning pieces of evidence from either leaks that I've seen so far. And ultimately, I think that it's inevitable that we go to the Shadowlands. So regardless of whether or not these leaks are true or not, we're going to fucking go there at some point. We're going to go there at some point. And with Sylvanas saying things like, in the end, they will serve death, they will serve me. All these little hints kind of leading up and trickling through to this inevitable realization, this inevitable revelation that something is going on in the Shadowlands that we were not aware of and that we need to be made aware of, I think speaks for itself. It's going to happen eventually, regardless of whether or not these leaks are real. So, that's pretty much it. If you guys enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for more content like this in the future. If you guys would like to, leave a comment down below letting me know what you think of this leak. And, yeah, I'd really appreciate that. If you guys don't know, I do have a Twitter and a Twitch, where you can find links to down in the description below. I post on Twitter lore stuff relatively often. And on Twitch, I stream. Haven't been streaming WoW that much lately because I've been relatively bored of WoW, to be honest with you. And then the last place you can find my credentials is going to be at patreon.com/pyromancer, where you can throw a couple bucks my way each month if you'd like to support me as a content creator. I certainly do appreciate that, as all of the input does help. So thank you very much for that. With that being said, you guys, that's it. I know you guys have wanted to hear about this leak from me for a little while, and that's all I have to say about it. So I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay awesome, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace!